Today's theory session is Ashtanga Yoga, one of my favorite topics. So, just at the start, I just want to say that, sometimes our Friday sessions tend to go longer, and now we've been doing a little bit of interactions also. So, if anybody has work, office, or even if the topic doesn't interest you, feel free to leave without disturbing the class. You can just take a leave, and, anyways, I'll be uploading the recording. All right. So, today's topic, one of my most favorites because it really resonates with yoga beyond asanas, something that I truly believe in. So as you can see here, you can all see the screen. Yeah, all right. So the 8 limbs of yoga is what Patanjali describes in the Yoga Sutras, all right, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. These are set of 196 sutras, which were written about approximately 5,000 years ago. Like the exact date is not known. And this, he actually gave it to us as a blueprint for our life on how to live our life for eternal happiness. Okay. Um, so let's look at why is it first of all called Ashtanga Yoga, or the 8 limbs of yoga. Ashta is 8, Anga is limbs. Okay. Why does he say limbs of yoga and not steps of yoga or 8 parts of yoga? Right? Why? Because if you see, do I have a okay? So when you, for example, limbs are something like, if you give an analogy of a chair, okay, when you lift up any leg of the chair, right, the whole chair comes up, isn't it? It's not like you don't break a part and lift it up. So parts will mean something like which work even sort of individually. They don't need to be whole together. Something like how we use our mixie, right? The mixer has different jars and you can use them separately also, otherwise also. Then steps, how do you use steps? You need to cross one step to go to the other, right? Ideally you cannot go to the third step, you cannot jump to the third step, especially if the first 2 steps are so big. Can you see within the first step and the second step there are 5 points each, right? You cannot just directly jump to the third step. Okay, but we are doing the third step first. We're doing asanas already, right? So that's why Patanjali actually calls it limbs. Limbs means it's the whole thing. It is one whole. Okay, like when our human body develops, it is not like first the nose comes and then the ear comes, then the eyes come, right? I mean, it's kind of everything develops, what do you say, uniformly. Not first would be the wrong term, because in the fetus development happens one part by the other. But if there is, if the one hand is longer and one hand is shorter or something like that, then we call it a deformity, or maybe it would be termed as a disorder, right? Otherwise everything comes up as a whole. So similarly, all of these points actually are happening within us. All of us experience, even samadhi we experience at some instance, or even for a few seconds in our life. Okay, so although we think samadhi is a very big word, but then all of these 8 steps, they kind of are happening simultaneously. And if you focus on even one of them, if you start working on any one of them also, they say that all the others will just follow. If you work on one very earnestly, all the others will simply follow. So today we'll try to cover maybe the first 4 or the first 5. Let's see how much time we have. I would want to stop in the next 10 minutes or so. Okay, so the first one actually is yama, and the second one is niyama, right? The yamas and the niyamas are like the foundation or the roots of a tree. Now this is just one of the analogies where they're showing the Ashtanga Yoga as a tree. Some of the gurus, they make it analogous to a fetus, or make it analogous to a growth of a human being from adolescence to, like, childhood to adolescence to adulthood, etc. Okay, but this is one of my favorite analogies. I think it gives a very good understanding. Okay, so the roots of the tree are basically the foundation. It actually gives us it provides the real nourishment, right? And once these are strong, then we become very, very unshakable. So what are these? Yamas are basically the don'ts, and niyamas are the do's. These are the simple do's and don'ts. If we follow, then we can just be like super happy unconditionally. All right. So like I was saying, these yamas are nothing but restraints which you would want to put on yourself. Just like in a society we would have janhit mein, do not spit on the road, something like that. But these are not societal rules, these are rules for ourselves, what we should be doing even when nobody is watching at all right. So one of the first ones, we'll just quickly go through the yamas, niyamas, and then the others. Okay, so ahimsa is the first one, and they say it's non-harming. Now, whenever we've heard of this word ahimsa many times, thanks to it being popularized by Gandhi ji and even the Jain tradition, right? But we kind of limit it to not killing animals or not harming somebody physically or being violent. But it is much deeper. They say ahimsa or non-harming through thought, speech, and through action. Thought, word, and action. So even in the thoughts, if we are putting out a bad thought in the world, you're spoiling the energy of the house, you're spoiling the energy of the room, of the country, right? So when we see some of these monks who are not really taken the karma yoga path, they're not into action. When they're sitting in the caves, all they're doing is just blessing or doing prayers for the, what do you say, the kalyan of the world, like for betterment of every person. So it's not that their work is any less than somebody who's running schools, doing charitable institutions, teaching yoga, and all of that. All right, so what they mean is that our thought also counts. When we speak words, it should be loving and kind, that which is the opposite of ahimsa. It should be non-harming. So ahimsa literally at every level. And then they talk about satya, which is truth. All right. Now, truth is the opposite of truth would be dishonesty. Okay. One simple reason they would say why we should practice satya and why it makes our life simple is because the karma of telling a lie can come back to you really, really harsh in different ways. If you lie somebody, that means you're covering up the truth. You're blocking their perception of something that they can understand better. Correct. So the same will happen to you, right? When you're trying to understand something, when you're trying to solve something, then the truth will be blocked from you, and you will not be able to figure it out at all. Okay, sometimes this can be with very important things in life, like you might be figuring out your life purpose, you might be figuring out if the next job is right for me, and then what the world universe does is it blocks out the things which makes your decision making easier. So that is the karma of being not honest. Okay, so truthfulness, a very good virtue. Brahmacharya, commonly known as celibacy or sexual restraint. But since all of us are in this grihastashram and we're living not a monk life, so for yogis and all, brahmacharya would mean celibacy. But what does it imply for us? Okay, for us it simply means moderation for from anything pleasurable, not just sex. Okay, so anything pleasurable could be excessive eating of something that you like, ice cream, spices. It can just ruin the imbalance. Or excessive indulging in pleasurable things like watching movies, kuch bhi aa raha hai, I just want to binge watch, any kind of pleasurable things. So when we moderate that in our life, automatically you have more time, you have a better routine, etc. Right, I'm just touching upon these points. Of course, each of these points can itself be one whole session. There are books written on just one single point of these. Okay, asteya, moving to the next one, which is the non-stealing. All right, so they say non-stealing again is not just at the physical level, but non-stealing is again very, very like uh, it comes from basically not having a deep sense of like a belongingness. Okay, you should not be hoarding things. Like for example, nowadays we feel, clothes are so cheap, I can have thousands of them, right? I can easily have hundreds of them. It's not a problem. Or in terms of wastage, right? We feel like, yeah, water is freely available, we are not having to pay so much, so you can just keep. So that is actually stealing, right? You're stealing water from the universe, so it is causing a lack in some other place. Correct. So recently in our session we were talking about this butterfly effect, how there is this whole documentary on it, how a flapping of a butterfly in Mexico can cause a tsunami in Japan, right? So how we use our resources, our thing in our society can affect somewhere else. Okay, so non-stealing is also equivalent to sort of non-hoarding, non-accumulating too much, right? The last one in the don'ts is non-attachment. All right, non-attachment oftentimes comes from a sense of either unfulfillment or a sense of fear of losing. Because we fear losing something, we want to kind of keep it close to us. Even kids, for example, right? The reason we attach too much something to kids is because you're scared they'll go in some other direction, because you fear that something will happen, right? So in fact they say that non-attachment, if a person is really really confident, is what do you say, confident of that he can do come up in life even when brought down to ground zero, right? Then that is a sense of like, उससे सब कुछ छीन लो, उसका घर छीन लो, परिवार छीन लो, take everything away from that person, but still they will come up in life if they have that real self confidence. So non attachment actually brings in, brings out some kind a deep sense of fulfillment, which gives you very very strong confidence. Okay, then we have moving on, we'll go to niyamas. Right, in niyamas, these are basically do's. What are the things we should be following or doing or observing in our life for a happy healthy life? Okay, the first one being saucha, or cleanliness. So this again, of course, it's it can be physical cleanliness, cleanliness of your thoughts, cleansing your speech, right? Choosing nice words to use, even if you have to say something harsh to someone. Like we were speaking about satya, right? They say sometimes it's very difficult to tell the truth, especially to loved ones, when you have to correct something about them. But they say when you bring in saucha into that, then you package it so beautifully. This is a trait of sattva people. They package it so nicely that they will tell you the truth also, but it should not hurt you also. Okay, this is a virtue we need to develop. Okay, then of course, then saucha, like I was telling about last class also, I was saying that we do so much for outer purification, like bathing, decluttering, right? Because it keeps the mind free. When you declutter your table, it just keeps the mind free. When you take a bath, when you brush, you just feel clean, you feel fresher, right? So then the thoughts that come into us also will be nicer and fresher. But at the other level, they say like things like, why do we do this decluttering or cleansing? Because anything that is plain, it just brings in that same thing in your mind. It just brings in that plainness or emptiness of the mind. Another reason why we do saucha. And moving on, santosha. Santosha, contentment. Okay, now santosha actually it translates to unconditional happiness. Okay, so the key word here is not happiness, but the key word is unconditional. Happy, many of us can be when things are going right, we're all happy, right? But when things are not going wrong and you find a way to be happy, that is the real santosha that we're talking about here. Okay, the third one is tapas. Okay, tapas is basically like a zeal for life, like a penchant. Like you want to take up something that's difficult and prove your, like, not prove a point, but prove to yourself that yes, I am capable of doing this. Don't we all to a certain some level like challenges? In fact, this is one of the reasons why many people, when we start doing yoga, they say, I want to do the advanced asanas, because you want to challenge yourself, right? So in fact, tapas, they say, is like, the more you do tapas, the more you sort of, like brush yourself, ragdo yourself, okay, the more the inner shine comes out. Okay, like diamonds, when diamonds are taken out from a mine, right, they're rough cut, they call rough cut diamonds, the outside will be really, really rough. And then the more you take, it takes a diamond only to cut another diamond, by the way. Then the diamond, the sides are shined. You know how, what is the most shining diamond? It does not depend on the diamond quality, but actually the number of cuts. Because the more there are those cuts, the light comes in and it reflects. The light that reflects out is what creates the shine of the diamond. Okay. So for that, the diamond needs to be really polished. So like that, they say that all of us within us have the soul which is full of light. But for that light to come out, we need to go through like a lot of these severities. After all, it's not so easy, right? Keeping clean, doing ahimsa all the time, asteya, not coding. So all of these things actually are tapas. Yeah. Is it? Does anybody want to speak something? Heard anybody unmute? Okay. So we'll take it towards the end. The moving on, we have swadhyaya, which is self-study. Okay, so self-study again, very, very beautiful. They say that, after all, at the end of the day, we feel, fulfillment when we realize something. Okay, when you do a mistake, you realize, when you correct yourself, right, it actually gives that deep sense of fulfillment. So in fact, we go around the whole world, we go traveling, we go here, we go there, but then they say you come back to yourself when you study yourself, then you find that beauty. Yesterday, I think I read Rajini's status. I was just chatting with her, and she said, it said, to Rajini, what was it? Can you just unmute? I want to use the exact words. It said, "Khud ki khoj mein nikal, and you'll find the real happiness, and not elsewhere." Okay, I don't know, maybe she's muted. We'll ask her. So it said basically, you go in search of yourself, and then you'll not need anything else. Okay, that's the deeper idea of self-study or swadhyaya. And the last one, of course, is the ishvara paridhana, which means surrender. Surrender, it doesn't here, although we use the word ishvara, it doesn't really mean surrender to God as we know it, but just surrendering to universe, surrendering to universal laws, energies, rules. To a certain extent, we have all already surrendered. For example, something like gravity, okay, which is a universal law all over. We know it. If a chair is lying here, something is lying here, you're not going to expect it to suddenly, levitate and fly or anything, right? To a certain extent, we have surrendered. But then that real surrender of, all of these values that we're talking about, right? When all of these, imagine if everybody in the world followed all of these, then there would be no like distortion, there'd be no like confusion or wars or fights, etc. So I say just surrender to these virtues, to these values, surrender to your own real self, or basically the soul energy. Okay, so of course then we have your third step is basically like the bark of the tree, okay, which is the asanas. So this actually gives this tree like a real everything else of the tree kind of stays together because of the bark of the tree. Similarly, everything else that we are able to do is because of this body, right? If the body is weak, if the body is sick, I keep giving this example, whether you're in Taj Mahal or the Swiss Alps, you will not enjoy it at all if your body is sick. So similarly, the bark of the tree has to be really, really strong. This is actually another kind of tapas itself that we do through asanas, or another kind of saucha or cleanliness, right? You clean yourself from the outside through bathing, but asanas clean ourselves from the inside. They really help us with the alignment, with the purity, the energy, the chakras within start getting aligned, and they start getting more and more energized. So this is one of the reasons why we practice asana or posture. When Patanjali spoke about asanas in his Yoga Sutras, he does not mention even a single posture. There's no postures mentioned in the sutras at all. He only talks about the word asan, which is like a seat. Okay, why? Because we need to sit in a comfortable posture for these three things, which is dharana, dhyana, samadhi, or meditation. Because we cannot sit in a posture still for long, they say in Hatha Yoga Pradapika, which is one of the primordial texts of yoga, they say we should be able to stay in an asana at least for 180 minutes or 3 hours. Pick any asana. It can be sukhasana, it can be the most easiest asana, but you should be able to sit still in sthirta. Okay, steadiness, like the bark of the tree brings steadiness. If you're able to sit steady, then you don't need to do any yoga, you don't need to practice any asanas. But because we are not able to sit still, there are so many impurities in the body. That's why we do all of these other asanas, and then we have to do this whole circus just so that we can sit still and then practice meditation, or we practice the next limb, which is pranayama. Okay, so I think today I'll stop it here. We'll continue from pranayama in the next session. So I'll do pranayama, pratyahara, and these other three in the next session. It's already 7, so we probably have the other batch joining in. All right. Thank you so much. We'll chat later on the group. I'll see you all next class on Monday. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arsha.